Welcome to Stats Madness. Joining me today is Frank Hardy. We're diving into Manchester City's thrilling 2-1 win over Arsenal. With this result, City sits second with 67 points, close behind Arsenal's 70. Let's start with the match breakdown. City's win was impressive, but let's dissect the stats. How did key metrics reflect the match?
The narrative starts with the defining 2-1 scoreline. Looking at shots total, City had a significant edge, 15.0 versus 9.0. In shots on target, they led 5.0 versus 3.0. Ball possession was 59% to 41%. Meanwhile, pass accuracy favoured City 84% to 76%. Big chances created were even at 5.0 each.
So, those match facts were revealing. Can we break down City's category performance in attack, possession and defence?
Manchester City dominated the attack with 72.8 against 40.9, a 28% edge. They also controlled possession with 59.2 compared to 39.2, a 20% advantage. However, Arsenal showed defensive superiority with 44.7 over City's 37.8, giving them an 8% edge. The match was tactically split. City excelled in offence and possession, Arsenal in defence.
City showed their offensive dominance in category performance, but how did each team fare with specific tactical stats?
Manchester City had a clear attacking edge with 13 shots inside box compared to Arsenal's 8. In possession, they further led with 406 successful passes to Arsenal's 254. These numbers highlight City's strategic execution in maintaining pressure.
Wait, really? So City was more effective overall, but what about Arsenal's defensive response?
Interesting question. City led interceptions with 8 to Arsenal's 4, showcasing defensive control. Yet Arsenal's direct approach backfired. Only 39% of their long passes were successful. It was a game of contrasting styles.
From City's tactical edge to match momentum, what shifts defined the game's intervals?
In the 0-15 interval, City surged with 68.6% possession. Both teams scored in the 15-30 window, City with Ryan Cherki and Arsenal with Kai Havertz. City's dominance was clear in the 15-30 interval, with 84 successful passes to Arsenal's 36. They also led in accurate crosses 3-2 in the 30-45 interval. Arsenal's momentum was stalled by City's control, and Erling Haaland's goal in the 65th minute was decisive.
Interesting momentum shifts, Frank. Now, how did City's performance today compare to their season averages?
Manchester City hit the woodwork 2 times today, significantly above their season average of 0.93. They also created 5 big chances, continuing an upward trend from a 3.16 average. However, their saves dipped to just 1, far below their usual 2.52. These variances highlight City's evolving offensive prowess, but reveal defensive vulnerabilities.
Fascinating how they exceeded season averages, Frank. But how does Manchester City stack up in league standings overall?
Jamie, Manchester City stands out in shots inside box, hitting the top 0% with 13 today, above their 10.9 season average. They're consistently outperforming the league average of 8.38, cementing their elite status in offensive actions.
Wait, really? So they excel at getting shots off inside the box, but is that consistent across other metrics?
Yes, but there's a gap in tackles, where they sit in the bottom 16% with only 11 today, below the league's 16.74 average. Their season average of 15 also trails, indicating defensive hiccups.
So, while Manchester City excels in shots inside the box, how do they compare to their top 6 peers?
Manchester City leads in big chances created with a 3.16 season average, outpacing Arsenal and Chelsea. However, their 2.03 big chances missed aligns with Arsenal and Liverpool. In long passes, they lag with 38.71, behind Manchester United and Liverpool. As for shots total, they're neck and neck with Liverpool and Arsenal, averaging 14.84 this season.
So, while Arsenal matches up well against their peers, how do they compare to their own season averages today?
Today, Arsenal hit the woodwork 2 times, exceeding their season average of 0.5. They're also above their usual with 4 big chances missed, compared to a 2.03 season average. Defensively, they excelled with 5 blocks, well above their typical 2.62. These figures underscore a day of both missed opportunities and standout defensive efforts.
Arsenal's game today reflected some highs and lows, but how do they stack up against league standards overall?
Arsenal confirmed their elite status in big chances missed, sitting in the top 3% with 4 misses, while the league average is 1.5. However, they only had 8 shots inside box, below their season average of 10.78.
Wait, really? So they're struggling with shot placement lately?
Exactly, Jamie. Their average is well above the norm of 8.38, but today's performance hints at a tactical lapse. They're also improving in blocks with 5 today, compared to their average of 2.62.
We just explored Arsenal's league standing, but how do they match up against their top 6 peers this season?
Arsenal's big chances missed stand at 2.03, aligning with Manchester City and Liverpool. In big chances created, they're leading at 3.0, ahead of Chelsea and Manchester United. Their shots total of 14.69 mirrors Liverpool's and Man City's output. However, their ball possession at 56.59% is slightly behind the leaders like Manchester City, who boast 60.1%.
We just looked at Arsenal's stats against their peers. Who stood out individually in their respective positions this week?
Well, starting with the goalkeepers, David Raya led with a 6.35 rating, but this reflects broader struggles. In the defensive line, Nico O'Reilly shone brightly with a 7.54. Midfield saw Rodri impress with a 7.07, maintaining cohesion. Up front, Ryan Cherki excelled, hitting 7.9, outperforming others like Erling Haaland, who managed 6.71 despite being steady. These performances highlight tactical effectiveness across various formations.
With those standout performances, let's zero in on Ryan Cherki's recent showing. How does it compare to his season average?
Ryan Cherki's rating was 7.9, which aligns with his 7.3 season average. However, he struggled with assists, recording none against a seasonal 1.43. His big chances created also dipped to 0.0 from a 1.25 average. Lastly, he was slightly below in chances created, with 2.0 compared to his usual 2.38. Overall, a mixed bag in performance.
So, with Cherki's fluctuating season averages, how does he stack up as an attacking midfielder against the league?
Ryan Cherki is a standout in assists and successful dribbles, ranking in the top 2% for both, with a league average comparison of 1.1 and 1.5 respectively. However, his shots on target fall into the bottom 15%, with a 1.1 season average below the 1.3 league benchmark. It's a mixed bag, showing elite skills in some areas but needing improvement in shooting accuracy.
Given Cherki's strong league stats, how does he compare to his peers?
Ryan Cherki excels in assists with a 1.43 average, leading against peers like Bruno Fernandes, who sits at 1.2. His successful dribbles are also impressive at 2.62, significantly outperforming Florian Wirtz at 2.06. However, Cherki's shots on target are below par at 1.1, lagging behind Fernandes's 1.62. This mix highlights Cherki's creativity and flair, but suggests room for improvement in shooting consistency.
After comparing Cherki to his peers, let's look at Nico O'Reilly's performance against his season averages.
Nico O'Reilly's game was a mixed bag. His rating was consistent at 7.5, just above the 7.0 average. However, he struggled with a 0.0 successful crosses percentage, well below his 67.0 average. Tackles also dipped to 1.0 compared to a 2.9 norm, and he made only 1.0 key passes, short of his 1.4 average. These highlight areas for improvement.
Even with Nico O'Reilly's struggles, his overall league standing still tells a different story. Where does he rank among fullbacks?
Despite some inconsistencies, Nico O'Reilly shines in his positional group. His overall rating stands at an impressive 7.54, placing him in the elite 84th percentile among fullbacks. To put it in perspective, Patrick Dorgu from Manchester United, a notable competitor, holds a 6.97. O'Reilly's consistent performance outshines the league average of 6.71, underscoring his standout status in the league.
Speaking of league standings, Abdulkadir Kusanov's individual numbers this season are quite telling. How do they stack up against his own averages?
Kusanov has been impressive, maintaining a rating of 7.32, slightly above his season average of 6.85. Notably, he excelled in clearances, achieving a personal best of 5.0 compared to a 3.23 average. However, his tackles fell short at 1.0 versus a 1.77 average. Remarkably, he won 100% of his duels, surpassing his typical 72.33%.
Kusanov's averages are one thing, but how does he rank against his peers in the league?
Abdulkadir Kusanov stands out as a centre-back with elite interceptions, ranking in the top 2% league-wide. He's averaging 2.3 per game compared to the 1.6 league norm. However, his shots blocked is a systemic issue, placing him in the bottom 1% among centre-backs, with no blocks against a 1.2 benchmark. This contrast highlights his defensive strengths, but also critical areas for improvement.
Given Kusanov's league standing, let's explore how Rodri's recent performance stacks up against his own season averages.
Rodri's recent performance reveals some intriguing contrasts. His rating was consistent at 7.07, compared to a 7.27 season average. However, it was a tough outing for interceptions with 0.0, far below his 1.44 average. On the flip side, he achieved a personal best in duels won percentage, hitting 100% against a 65.17% benchmark. Yet, ball recovery fell short at 3.0 versus a 5.5 average.
Now, transitioning from Rodri's stats, how does Matheus Nunes' performance compare to his season averages, particularly in key defensive metrics?
Matheus Nunes turned in a consistent rating of 7.05, right in line with his 7.09 average. However, he struggled in interceptions, managing none compared to his 2.08 average. Similarly, he had 0 shots blocked, falling short of his 1.0 standard. Perhaps most concerning is his 0% duels won percentage, a stark contrast to his 67.82% season benchmark.
Reflecting on Matheus Nunes' defensive metrics, today we saw Manchester City's 2-1 victory, highlighting their 59% possession control. Frank Hardy, your insights were invaluable. Thanks for joining us on this tactical breakdown. To all our viewers, see you next time on Stats Madness.